Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pre-recorded lesson. At this point, you have completed the strengths and weaknesses document. I know there's a lot here, but you've completed the strengths and weaknesses document at this point, and I think we've gone over it at this point. Now what you're going to do is you are going to transition to some of the battles of the Civil War. Now, there are so many battles in the Civil War, hundreds. All right, we're going to try and become responsible for knowing 9 of them. Even though really only 1 or 2 come up on the Regents, I think this is, since it is the bloodiest war in American history, it's important for us to really take our time and to go through and to make sure we understand, kind of how this war transpired and what were some of the events and what were some of the major battles with it. So the way you'll be doing this is it's a 2-day assignment. You're going to do some of the first major battles, the first 4 today, and then tomorrow you're going to do the last 5. We're going to go through each battle by looking at a short reading. Each reading is written in a pretty easy middle school way. I don't think they'll be overly complicated, but it's just to get you more familiar with each battle so we can see how the events kind of transpired. So what I would do is, if I was you, I would open up this document. Okay, have it open because we're going to fill this in together. At least we're going to do the first one together after I explain how to do each particular situation. So you're responsible for filling in both the minor details box and you are responsible for filling in the significance and importance box. Now, this is probably the most important box, but it's probably also one of the hardest. All right, so we'll take our time and really try and go over how to do that box. We'll do the first one together, and then you guys will be responsible for doing the other 3 on your own for the rest of this period. All right. So let's look at, this particular box. The dates, straightforward, where it was fought, who you think won, a fun fact, okay, which I'll go over. And then this box here is the significance or importance. All right. What is the reason we're learning this battle? Why is it important in terms of the entire Civil War? So each battle in a war, okay, is what I like to say is like a game. So if you were a sports fan, each battle represents like one game. The overall goal of a season, no matter if you're a sports fan, is to win a championship. And that's the way the war works. The overall goal is to win the war. But each battle is a way and opportunity to get you closer to winning the war. All right. Now, can you lose battles and still win wars? Absolutely. Okay, just like you could lose a bunch of regular season games, and then when the championship comes, they all put it together and they win a championship. So wars break down between battles, skirmishes, and fights. Okay, and we're going to look at the biggest battles throughout the Civil War, or at least some of the biggest battles. Okay, because there's some we don't talk about, but you'll see in like oversimplified videos. So let's just go through it. All right, so you're going to now, at this point, click on, the first battle, which is number 1, the Battle of Fort Sumter. So you click on the Google Classroom, all right, as I'm doing right here. All right, you click on the Google Classroom. You click on number 1, the Battle of Fort Sumter. You open it up, and then we read it. So as you're going through it, I think it'd be very, very helpful for you to have out, give me 1 second. For you to have out this right here, okay? Because I think it would be important as you're reading to know kind of what they look like as a reminder, the names of the countries, the presidents, and obviously they're going to mention a lot of the generals. So like in the first battle, you're going to see P.G.T. Beauregard's name, all right? And obviously he's a Confederate general, so this should make it a little bit easier for you to be able to figure out, all right? But regardless, let's go to the reading, okay? So kind of have that nearby in case you need to refer back to it. So Fort Sumter in Flames is the name. So Fort Sumter sat on an island off the coast of South Carolina. By 1861, South Carolina had left the Union. In spite of this, Union soldiers stayed at that fort. Okay, so this is already a tricky situation. This is located in a Confederate state, the Fort Sumter. Okay, as you can see, the picture here on the right. It's located in a Confederate state, but it is a Union fort. So even though it's in Confederate state, Union soldiers are there. So this is the Union's fort. The Confederates did not like this at all. When the soldiers at the fort ran low on food, President Abraham Lincoln sent a supply boat to the men He told South Carolina's governor, the leader of the state, that the boat would not have any guns or soldiers. The Confederates, however, refused to allow this or any other boats near the fort. In fact, that they demanded that the fort surrender. Okay, so there's a bunch of threats going on between Lincoln and the South, but nothing has happened as of yet because the soldiers that are here, that are stationed there, need some food and need some stuff. Robert Anderson, the commander of the fort, and he is a Union commander, said, "We will not surrender." He and his 68 men braced for an attack. Not many soldiers are there, but 68 men braced for an attack. And on April 12th, 1861, Confederate General P.G.T. Beauregard ordered his troops to fire cannons at the fort. Okay, as you can tell, they're located in the water here. If you're looking at the photo here, they're firing cannons and setting it up in flames. Fort Sumter went up in flames, and Anderson surrendered after 2 days. This was the true beginning of the Civil War. All right, and then you should have some side things here, which are great to read. You know, a good show. Thousands of Southerners saw the battle at Fort Sumter. They loaded their carriages up with food and friends. Then they watched as the bombing took place near Charleston. So, yes, there were some battles back in history. We saw this in the War of 1812 where people watched. So it's always kind of weird. And then no casualties. Despite heavy firing, not one man died during the attack on Fort Sumter, which is pretty interesting. All right, so let's fill in this graphic organizer. So the first thing we need is the date. Okay, so if you kind of just preview or look at the text, you should be able to pick out the date is right here, April 12th, 1861. So as we go here, we're just going to fill that in. Now, to be honest, most Civil War battles and most battles in general last more than a day. They usually last weeks, sometimes months. There's one battle in here that lasts 10 months. So it's not always going to be April 1861. It may say the summer of 1862, or it may say from May 1863 to June 1863. Okay, it's going to pretty much tell you, but it's not going to always give you a specific date like this. All right, where was the battle fought? Well, that's usually around the beginning, right? If you're looking at a text and you want to know where and when it was fought, the beginning is usually pretty good. All right, so this is going to be fought at South Carolina, which I think could be helpful to put as a Confederate state. I think it would be helpful to kind of realize, you know, where some of the battles were fought. This will become more important a little bit later on. Who do you think won? So again, it's never going to say the South wins. It's never going to say the North wins. Never going to say that. You got to look for keywords. You got to look for what are the goals in battle. Well, a lot of the goals in battle are to take a piece of land away from an opponent. Another goal could be you want the opponent to retreat. Another goal could be you could want them to surrender. Or maybe you just want to eliminate and kill as many other soldiers as possible so you have high casualties on the opposite side. So where you're going to always want to look, though, is in the last paragraph. Who do you think won? So we're going to go back to the last paragraph. If you notice, someone surrenders. This guy, Anderson, surrendered. Now, Anderson is not in your general's area. Okay, it's not in your general's area, but it is in your, it is kind of written in the text here that Robert Anderson is the commander of Fort Sumter, therefore he surrenders. All right, so this is basically saying that since Fort Sumter went up in flames and since the Union commander surrendered, that means the Confederates are going to win this battle. All right, so I'm going to write that in, Confederates. And on the, here we're going to say South. And South wins. All right. Now, the fun facts could literally be anything from the text that you found interesting. I tend to pull from the boxes on the side. My favorite one's this one, no casualties despite heavy firing. Not one man died during the attack on Fort Sumter. I mean, I mentioned this is the bloodiest war of all time, yet during the first battle, no one actually dies. So it's very rare for a battle. So I think that's a fun fact. So not one soldier died during this battle. Right. Want to add more, you can, but you just need a minimum of one. And then the significance and importance. So this is the toughest box. Sometimes it's going to be written in the last paragraph. Sometimes you need to paraphrase. Sometimes you need to infer. All right. Basically, you got to try and figure out why was this battle important in terms of the entire war. on why this battle was important for the entire war. Sorry, just sharing this tab so you see I wrote the fun fact here. Why this is important for the battle of the entire Civil War, why is this an important battle, can be found in the last paragraph. And actually happens to be in the last sentence. Why do we know the Battle of Fort Sumter? So I forget the date sometimes. I forget he was fought in South Carolina. But I do remember years from now, okay, I will never forget that Fort Sumter was important because this was the true beginning of the Civil War. So if hypothetically Fort Sumter never happens, the Civil War may never start. But since the South decided to attack the fort, the Union took that as a sign of war, an act of war. So this is when we started to declare war on the South. All right, so I would say this was true beginning of the Civil War. All right, so at this point, you have 3 more battles you need to work on. The Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Shiloh, the Second Battle of Bull Run. You should be following it the same way. I would say each battle takes about 7 to 10 minutes, okay, if you're doing it correctly and you're filling it in. Some, if you're working really hard, maybe a little less, but you shouldn't be spending 30 minutes on each battle, okay? You don't need to Google anything. You just need to follow the text and write everything that's in the text. All right, so you guys should be all good to know what you have to do, and then have a great rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow.